When the defense attorney was cross-examining the lead investigator, he got about halfway through, and the judge advised him to take the fifth.
Which investigator was that?
This was Jimmy Patterson, because Patterson had wiretap and the gravesite, looking for a gravesite confession.
The fact that a police officer took the Fifth Amendment, to me, as a jury, that would be the end of their credibility.
I have never, and I've testified, I can't tell you hundreds of homicide trials. I have never took a Fifth Amendment. I said no,
It's against self-incrimination, exactly. And you're the officer, the lead officer in the case. I can't imagine the judge allowing a capital murder case to continue when you can't cross-examine the lead investigator because he took the Fifth Amendment.
That's incredible.
But I'm going to tell you, there's not one piece of direct evidence, not really one piece of credible evidence, why she should spend 10 years on death row or certainly be executed.
You don't do that without a court order. You just can't wiretap somebody, listen to a conversation, let alone the video, the audio. I mean, that's police work 101.
Jerry,
you know that stuff.
I think that it should have been thrown out, that whole thing should have been thrown out based on the investigator taking the Fifth Amendment.
If those things are true, I think that's really big. I mean, to me, it sounds like Darlie could be the wrong woman in prison, really. And something like this, we have all the circumstantial evidence. I say, you know what? Go through everything, whatever it is. If there's some DNA evidence, blood, fingerprints, whatever, take it all, do it all, test everything, so that we could at least say, listen, we did everything the defense asked. We checked it all out.
They got the unexplained print, and they believe they have some DNA on the sock.
And I think that's where they got to exhaust all these things. Because imagine putting somebody, there's no taking it back once you execute her. It's over.
Calling Lieutenant David Navis.
We tried to follow up with the cops. Hi, this is Jerry Palace from Court TV. If you could please give me a call. Hi, this is Jerry Palace from Court TV. I'm looking for Officer Patterson.
You've reached the Rowlett Police Department.
This is Jerry Palace from Court TV. I'd like to leave a message for James Patterson. Our investigation took on a new sense of urgency. Reggie and I were becoming more and more convinced that an innocent woman might be sitting on death row, and the clock was ticking. It's about these two kids. I mean, they're the real victims of this. Their life was cut so short, so fast. Reggie, what does it mean if Darlie's innocent?
They got the wrong person in jail.
Yeah, and the right person is still out there. That's the real scary part. Man, that a monster like that could be out there. I tell you one thing, I'd be locking my doors. The next day, we had a bombshell dropped on us. A story about Darlie's husband, Darren, that came from out of left field. The next day, we met with Skip Hollingsworth, a local journalist who has covered Darlie's case from the very beginning.
Nice.
Beautiful area.
Nice home.
He claimed to have information about Darlie's husband, Darren, that would blow our investigation wide open. Thanks.
If Darlie, the victim, says, my husband Darren had nothing to do with it, and the evidence and the prosecution goes with her, why would they go after Darren?
Why would they go after Darren?
Yeah.
I got to know this defense attorney that was handling the appeals named Stephen Cooper, and he said to me, Darren's father-in-law, Bob Key, has suddenly remembered Darren coming to him a few weeks before the murder and saying, I am broke. I need to find someone who's going to break into my house, steal all my stuff, my furniture, my jewelry, my valuables, hide it away in a U-Haul. I will claim the insurance, get the insurance money, and I'll be back to even, and then load up my house with this furniture that's been hidden away. And I said, well, is that true? And Cooper says, go ask Darren.
Go ask Darren.
So I meet Darren at a restaurant, and I said, did you hire somebody to try to break into your home and burglarize it? And there was this long silence. And he says, are you going to print this? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, I did it. I was asking around. And I said, did you hire anybody? He said, I never hired anybody. but I did let the word out. The story changes everything if true, because it provides a motive. It provides an answer to a question that has haunted everyone. Why would someone break into a nicely lit home in the middle of the night on the cul-de-sac of a pleasant little suburban neighborhood and just walk in and stab 2 kids to death and cut the throat of their mother and slice her across the arm and then walk out?
Well, did you buy the story? Do you think it was for real? Or did you?
Darren was hardly blameless. There had been evidence that he had tried to get someone to steal his Jaguar and take it to a chop shop when he was going broke in 1996. And there's always been the question of what did Darren do after he discovered that his children had been stabbed to death. And that mystery, which the prosecutors never went into during the trial, because their trial was focused solely on Darlie.
And what was your next question to him?
Are you making up this story to give Darlie some wiggle room so that when the Court of Appeals hears about this, they might give her a new trial?
And what was his reply?
He said, no. And I said, do you realize that this story, if found to be true, could put you on the spot and right in the hair trigger of the DA? He goes, with a pause, I want to tell you the truth, but I don't want to do anything that might get me arrested and railroaded like Darlie did.
The outside chance that this could be true and maybe he set up his home to be burglarized and the word went out, yeah, this guy's looking to get his house burglarized, and 2 guys, 1 guy, whatever, comes out and does this, you know, and it turns bad and he winds up killing 2 kids and trying to kill Darlie, you know.
And it also leads to the other side of the right man, wrong man, or who committed this homicide.
There is some reasonable doubt about this. Whether Darlie did this herself, whether she was helped by her husband, or whether he orchestrated this whole thing with a burglary attempt that went terribly bad and 2 children wound up dead as a result. The bloody sock wasn't the only piece of evidence that potentially linked Darren to the crime. An appeal filed in the wake of Darlie's conviction set out a number of facts that argued in favor of reversing her guilty verdict. First, a hair and a murder weapon matched a known sample of Darren's hair. Second, while Darlie suffered multiple knife wounds during the attack, Darren was totally unharmed. Third, that Darren had a powerful financial motive to kill Darlie. His business was failing and he was deeply in debt, while Darlie's life was insured for $250,000. And we also learned that because Darlie's attorney had represented Darren on another matter, he couldn't argue that Darren might have been involved in the murders.
I don't even know how the judge would allow anything like that. It's quite strange. I don't like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that if that was my attorney. Hey, I want you to go after anybody that might be guilty in a case like this. 2 young kids killed? I mean, it's a horrible crime.
How does he get out of that crime scene without leaving a trace of blood? What did he do, get up and fly out of there?
After nearly 6 weeks investigating Darlie Routier's case, we could finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. We just found out that our request to meet with Darlie herself was approved. Reggie and I were anxious to hear what she had to say. But today was about a local mechanic named Barry Fife, who was rumored to have been solicited by Darren back in the early 90s to take part in an insurance scam. If Barry was involved in this supposedly conspiracy to commit a burglary in a home, get the intruder there, I mean, that's a big thing, you know? And Darren just didn't want to get himself involved because he knows if he gets himself involved, he's going to be taking Darlie's spot. Guys like this are always around. Somebody who knows him, you know?
Yeah.
After a little asking around, it was easy enough to find Fife. It seemed everyone either knew him or knew someone who knew him. You're Barry Fife? Can we ask you a question? I wanted to talk to you about the Darlie Routier case. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they're my neighbors over there.
Well, apparently there were allegations made about you and Darren that he wanted to maybe arranged for a burglary of his own house. Do you remember that?
He didn't talk to me about it.
Do you think Darlie is the right person? Do you know anything about Darlie? What kind of person she was?
He did it. I think he did it the whole time.
You think he did it?
I think Darren did it. I just think he snapped.
You think Darren snapped?
Yeah. And when I went over there, the first thing he told me, he said, rough night.
He called it a rough night? That's it?
That's it.
Didn't say anything about the kids or anything? But if
I think he did it and ran upstairs and acted like he was sleeping or whatever he did, or, you know.
Why didn't he kill Darlie?
I think he tried, and she just lived. That's what I think.
He thought that Darren is the one that killed his children and cut his life.
He kind of denied the stolen car thing that Darren ever came to him about his Jaguar. Fife told us that he believed Darren had snapped due to his declining financial situation and had killed his 2 young boys in a blind rage. The other thing we have to find out about Darren is any involvement with Barry Fife, you know? What about that? Is there any truth to that? And if so, what was it? I think at this point he also knows that his name is being dropped around.
Oh, yeah, he knows.
You know, that he could be involved in this somehow. Information was now pouring in, and we discovered that in 1998, Darren had been given a lie detector test. According to the police, he had failed it. They made such a big thing about the lie detector test, right? And we've heard that it was confrontational, and you know and I know that once you get into a confrontational position with the person that's taking the test, you can't get an accurate reading on it.
No, you can't.
According to Darren's account of the lie detector results, he had failed because the police had administered the test improperly. But we sat down and watched the tape for ourselves.